I felt ambushed. I wasn't given a full scope of what was going on.
We have all the receipts, text messages to Billy saying who I am, what my credentials are, what we were going to be talking about. The word debate was used. Yeah, here's the thing. We gave him so many opportunities to do that, not admitting that some of the details were what actually happened. He's still saying he got blindsided. He's still saying he didn't really know who I am.
Guess what, guys? I'm one of the foremost world leader in the knowledge on ancient texts and tablets, scriptures, papyruses, and cylinders.
So you went on a podcast where they had another guest that was going to grill you.
Yeah, going to grill me.
No word of an exaggeration. Hundreds of people who have simply said, I just didn't know. I just took him at face value. And to see him not just not give a good rebuttal, but give no rebuttal to these things that he's been saying, you know, going back to 2017.
Wes Huff responds to all the craziness that Billy Carsons' last video on Ruslan's podcast. So let's get right into it. And I can't wait to watch it with you guys.
When was the first time you saw a little blip in terms of just getting traction on your YouTube stuff? Do you remember that moment? Or did it just was it just slow, gradual, and then boom, Billy Carson debate happens and everything explodes?
Yeah, when we released the Can I Trust the Bible series in March of 2024, there were a lot of people who were taking notice of that.
Okay.
Now that's gone crazy, especially since I played a clip of it on Rogan. I mean, purposefully. Shameless self-promotion.
Yeah.
But that series, I mean, I had a little bit of a following, but it was pretty neat. Before the Can I Trust the Bible series, the Can I Trust the Bible series launched. And we were really promoting that, and we signed a deal with Right Now Media where they were also promoting it. And so I think that got a lot of traction.
Okay.
And then I started to see the social media following with both myself and AC, Apologetics Canada, grow. But since the Billy Carson thing, I mean, that's just been injected with steroids, which has been interesting to see and totally unpredictable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you be willing to run it back with Billy Carson?
Yeah, I don't think he will, though.
But would you be willing to?
Yeah, of course I would.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, so let me preface that. Yes and no. I mean,
Billy Carson would just get destroyed even further because he still said all of those same arguments that he's used the entire time in his life. And he's saying he wasn't his best game. He wasn't feeling his best. He just got out of the hospital. He was alive. It would just be worse. Not unless he uses some crazy like debate skills.
concrete way, I think myself, Mark Menard, who set the thing up, Anton, who was the media manager for Mark, we're all moving on.
Yep.
Like, we don't want to be known as the Billy Carson rebuttal people.
Sure.
All three of us. And so we are, in a very concrete way, we're moving on to bigger and better things. Yeah. It can be argued that Billy is not.
It was life. I let a lot of it slip because a lot of these people are just ignorant, poor people. You know, they're just poor people. They're just ignorant. Well, I let a lot of it, whatever, man. These people are just poor dummies.
But we are moving on.
Yeah.
So
Sheesh.
I don't want to dwell on the Billy Carson thing. But if Billy wants to run things back, I'm perfectly willing to do that.
Yeah.
I just don't think he's going to.
Yeah.
And I kind of want to get him into a room and push him on some of the things that happened in his 3-hour live stream.
But I am so glad that Wes Huff finally was able to debunk him. Because when I first made videos of Billy Carson, he had so many fans just saying, you don't know what you're talking about. How dare you call out the one true foremost knowledge of ancient manuscripts and textual papyruses. So many things. They're like, how dare you? And now my last video of like talking about the situation, no one was defending Billy Carson.
Yeah, that was bad. Did you see his conversation with Dr. Amen?
Unfortunately, yeah, I did.
Oh, man, I felt that was the first time I thought, and I don't want to ask a bunch of more Billy Carson questions, but that was the first time where I think he humanized himself, and he took like the first bit of like responsibility and ownership in terms of failing in any regard. That was the first time I saw him do that, and he would the only thing he really owned up to failing was that live stream. He was like, I failed in that live stream, and I went live, and I didn't do a good job. And I was like, that may be the beginning of him at least growing past this, because it just seems like he just keeps making a mess out of it, instead of like, you either got to be quiet and don't say anything else about it, or you got to lean all the way into it and say, hey, I want to run it back in a formal setting with a moderator, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, here's the thing. We gave him so many opportunities to do that. Even before Mark put out the initial debate, which kind of got downloaded and reposted. We told him we can ignore that and just do an in-person thing. Like there were opportunities to do that he ignored and instead chose to go about a route that resulted in what he eventually did in the 3-hour live stream. And even in the recent video that he did, he's still not admitting that some of the details were what actually happened.
Yeah.
He's still saying he got blindsided. He's still saying he didn't really know who I am. And listen,
he's about to say something that's super important. They have text messages showing this is who he is. They even say that it was a debate. That's what's crazy. I didn't know that. Literally everything that he's saying was a lie.
I've talked to Mark as recently as yesterday about this because we have all the receipts. I mean, we have text messages to Billy saying who I am, what my credentials are, what we were going to be talking about. The word debate was used.
That is crazy.
In the day previous when this whole thing was set up.
And there's text messages of all this stuff.
Yeah, of course there is. I've seen this.
It's like a perfect origin story of a villain. Like everything you're describing, because he goes from being this beloved, kind of quirky person doing all this podcast run, and then the way that all unfolded from the Ring door cam at 2 a.m. to these text messages. I have never seen and now his wife, my buddy Mike Kelly, sent me a video. Apparently his wife is doing a podcast tour and addressing Wes Huff and all this stuff, and I'm just like, just let it die.
Yeah, he needs. We all need to move on. I mean, I wish Billy the best. I think the best thing he can do right now is just move on.
Yeah,
we want to move on. He wants to move on.
Yeah.
I know when I was on the PBD podcast, Patrick said, like, will you run it back? We'll arrange it. And I said, yes, but I honestly don't think he will.
Yeah.
I don't think he is going to put himself into a position where he can get his facts checked.
Yeah.
Because I think his whole brand was...
And it's so cool that he used the situation of someone that we were calling out for like a whole year of saying this guy's lying like crazy. He used the situation to bring up someone who actually speaks the truth and to go on all those amazing platforms. That is God taking a situation and turning it into good. Sorry that Billy Carson, maybe he's not having the best life now. I'm sure he's comfortably fine and wealthy still.
Him saying things and relying on his audience not
being ignorant,
being able to actually understand what they were talking about. And Mark, Anton, and I have all heard from no word of an exaggeration, hundreds of people who have simply said, I just didn't know. I just took him at face value. And to see him not just not give a good rebuttal, but give no rebuttal to these things that he's been saying, going back to 2017, shocked me. Like these are the messages we're kind of getting, and saying I need to rethink everything I really believe about what I've been relying on in terms of my worldview, or even like a message recently. This lady said, like, I've been teaching my kids this stuff for 5 years.
Wow.
And now I'm trying to almost like, when people are in a cult and they have to do training to try to undo all that stuff. She's like, I feel like I'm doing that and it feels weird because I'm the one who taught them this stuff. So yeah, I wish Billy the best. Yeah. I wish his family the best. I don't know what he's talking about when he talks about death threats. And
before he gets into the death threats thing, so people are taking what he's saying and then teaching it to their kids. Oh my goodness. How in the world did it get down to this level of deception? Oh wow. When you watch that video, he tries to get you to feel bad for him, but when you hear these stories,
coming after his kid, and you said it, I've heard you say it, I will say it, like, all of that stuff is reprehensible.
Yep.
People should not be doing that.
Yep.
But it has nothing to do with myself, Mark, or Anton.
Yep.
None of us have done that.
Yeah. Well, I think at that point it's just sheer volume. If
sure
5 million people, 10 million people see the story, a certain percentage of them are going to be crazies and are going to potentially do some crazy things.
And people are like, there's no way Christians would do that. I heard that it's a lot of his fans turning on him. A lot of the people that were following him are the ones who were commenting all these crazy things because they're upset at being lied to.
Way I can explain it, because I don't know anyone who reacted to this, even gave the tone of like, go personally harass him.
Yeah.
It's always been, hey, just have the conversation again.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's really interesting that he got these basic things wrong. Which, by the way, those of us who have been following, I mean, he's been getting basic stuff wrong. Like whenever the word God is in the Bible, it's always plural.
Oh,
like
yeah.
that's
No,
such
that's
an easily debunkable,
Yeah.
debunkable thing. But the beautiful part is the fruit of all this, like the fruit of
That's what I was saying.
people coming to Jesus,
Yeah.
coming to the faith,
Yep.
coming back to the faith, maybe
Yeah.
people that drifted, and the outpouring of support that you've gotten in the messages and the comments of, hey, I came back to the faith because of watching this conversation with Billy, and then going down and checking out your channel, and now I'm Team Jesus. Like that to me,
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever
Praise
seen anything
God.
like that on the internet.
Yeah. No, it's undeniably divinely orchestrated.
Mhm.
I think it is. There's no way I could have gotten myself into a conversation with Billy Carson.
Yeah.
When I made response videos, which by the way, I only had started doing like maybe a few months before that interaction actually happened.
Uh-huh.
Because I don't think it was the Andrew Schultz Flagrant podcast, which was the one that people were sending me and being like, what is this guy talking about?
Yep.
Right? Because they
Right.
didn't know.
Yep.
He says things, people don't know what they don't know. And I understand that. But I had friends and people reaching out to me and saying, this guy's putting this out there. How would you respond to it? And so one night when I couldn't sleep, I just kind of mapped out how I would respond to it. And the next day I just threw a video together. Like it wasn't even that much of a planning
Mhm.
that went into it. And then I clipped it and I put it on Instagram.
Mhm.
But I don't know if it was even 4 months before the actual interaction with Billy. It was during that summer.
Mhm.
And that's when I started to, because I realized I didn't truly know who Billy was prior to that. I had actually mutual friends of ours, Melissa Doherty.
Oh, yeah,
She was throwing around this idea. Yeah, her book just came out. Yeah,
give
Happy
a quick
Lies.
plug to Melissa. I just got your
Yeah,
book.
go
Thank
get that
you,
book.
Yes.
It's excellent. There's a great endorsement in the front by this guy Wes Huff, I think it's.
But yeah, I remember making a reaction video to Billy Carson last summer. All of that was pretty crazy. Just to think about someone making these outlandish claims and people were taking it as he knows something that no one else knows. It was so frustrating for me as like a content creator.
So Melissa and I were talking about, we were going to do this video, which never got put together, called The Gospel According to TikTok, where we were going to go through a bunch of TikTok videos where people were just saying ridiculous things about the Bible.
nice.
And one of them was Billy Carson.
That's
In
cool.
fact, it was the one where he said, I am the world leading expert in biblical texts. That's where I found that clip. That was my first introduction. And then when he was on the Flagrant podcast, I was like, I recognize this guy. And went back in my messages with Melissa and found that video.
Yeah.
But this didn't go that far back.
Yeah.
And so the fact that I went from that to those gaining traction to Mark seeing, or Anton sending Mark my stuff, Mark feeling like he couldn't get in this conversation and really interact and navigate it the way he wanted to, reaching out to me 24 hours beforehand, me happening to see that DM, that conversation happening, Billy reacting like he did, that gaining traction because he tried to suppress it, him trying to sue us, Rogan seeing that. Like
That's
all of these
crazy.
things are nothing any one of us could have put together.
Such a God thing. Such a God thing. Allowing. It's just such a amazing thing to see. We have Billy Carson going on all these podcasts spreading lies. And then because of Billy Carson's lies getting debunked, then Wesley Huff got to be used by God and going on the same podcast that Billy Carson was going on to spread truth.
Micromanaged.
Absolutely.
It is unanimously, unequivocally a God thing.
The Lord will just breathe on certain things, and it just is what it is.
Yeah.
And I think that was cool. I didn't realize how mainstream it was until I saw that Oompaville video reacting to it, and I was like, "Oh, this is like
Yeah, that was crazy.
this is like mainstream YouTube culture."
I think you sent that to me.
Yeah, I did send it.
I didn't even realize that was happening.
Yeah.
And that was the first time, I think, and I think you said this to me, where it was like, it's broken out of the Christian circle.
Yep.
Because that really did make it go outside of that. And then there were some rumblings of people that I knew who were like, I think Rogan is paying attention to this. But I was still joking with people that like, yeah, I'll get in contact with Rogan after I get in contact with Trump. Like,
That's funny.
well, the Trump part doesn't sound as outlandish now that you've done Rogan.
I know.
Funny
Well, the
part.
crazy thing about all this is when we're doing like planning stuff with Apologetics Canada, we're like, who's the crazy person?
Yeah.
Because at this point, nobody feels crazy.
Yeah.
Like when you get DM'd,
Are we gonna see a podcast with Wes Huff and Donald Trump? No, the podcast that I really do want to see is Wes Huff on the Flagrant podcast. Because that's actually where I heard of Billy Carson first, was on the Flagrant podcast, like you were saying.
Joe Rogan, nothing else feels
That's right.
like impossible.
Genesis 50:20. You intended to harm me, but God intended it all for good. He brought me to this position so I could save the lives of many people. That's so good. And that's what it seems like. It seems like the enemy, at the end of the day, Billy Carson's not the enemy, but in general, the enemy uses lies to deceive people. But then God turned around this situation that a lot of Christians were upset about, and then it turned into something so amazing to get the gospel out to millions and millions of people for the truth. So I think that's so cool. So guys, if you haven't decided to follow Jesus, I encourage you to do that today. I have a link in the description to help you, and it'll walk you right through to decide to follow Jesus for the first time. And thank you guys so much for watching.